Howdy YouTube family, it's Bolt SRNA coming to you with another day's topic. Today I want to talk about something that come up on an online nursing forum that I visited. It was an OR scrub tech or an OR nurse had made a comment saying that they felt like CRNAs got paid too much money. This started kind of an inflammatory war between a lot of CRNAs and SRNAs and nurses and people who were commenting on it. But their perspective on it, this scrub tech or OR nurse, their perspective was from a viewpoint of ACT care. They worked in a Houston, Texas facility that did ACT care, and they had witnessed over and over CRNAs who pretty much the MDA, anesthesiologist, came into the room. They would push the induction drugs. They would watch the CRNA intubate the patient. Once everything was safe and they were, monitoring them, the anesthesiologist would leave. Then whenever it was time for emergence, the anesthesiologist would come back in and do the emergence and step in and take over for the CRNAs apparently if it got complicated or anything went wrong. And then the CRNA would take the patient to PACU. So from this OR nurse or scrub tech's perspective, they said it just looks like an ICU nurse who knows how to intubate a patient. And their statement was that an ICU nurse who knows how to intubate a patient and just monitors people is not worthy of $150,000 to $200,000 a year income. Of course, we know it's a lot more in-depth than that. People who are in the field, SRNAs and CRNAs, know that even in those situations with heavily ACT care that's kind of taken over by an MDA, even the monitoring process and blood products and everything else that you're doing in the middle there, that's not just an ICU nurse who knows how to intubate. There's a lot that you have to do there. But the OR tech's opinion was that those type of nurses who just do minimal care and don't perform all their skills, don't do all their own inductions, don't do the emergencies, don't do the blocks, don't do the central lines, they don't deserve the, the higher income that maybe some other CRNAs get. So that began a debate, and I was just interested in kind of what you guys thought about it. So the point that the CRNAs were making mostly was that even in those situations where you don't have as much autonomy as you'd like, and you have an anesthesiologist who's very active and kind of does the high points of the procedure for you, it's still a CRNA who's trained and knowledgeable to do induction and emergence and blocks and all that stuff. We all have to know how to do those things to take boards and to go out into the field and practice. So even if they're not actively doing them, they still know how to do them, so they should be compensated for that knowledge that they have. And in the case that they would need to do it, they will be able to do that, so they should be paid accordingly. And then other people, of course, had the comment that they, if they're not actively practicing these skills, then they lose these skills, and therefore they're not as valuable or shouldn't be paid as high as other CRNAs who are actively using the skills and would be capable probably of being pretty proficient in them at any given time. Then, of course, brings up the another point. A lot of CRNAs were stating that CRNAs actually should get paid more. So they were counteracting the OR nurse's opinion that they should be paid less and saying, actually CRNAs, they're able to do everything an anesthesiologist does, so why are they not paid as much as an anesthesiologist? And so I was kind of intrigued by this idea. I've never really thought about that before. If you can do everything an anesthesiologist can do, and some research has shown recently that patient outcomes are just as safe with CRNAs versus anesthesiologists, why is it that the anesthesiologist gets paid more? And not just a little more, but I'd always heard it was significantly more. So I thought, let me do a little bit of research into this and see what I can find. And so I went to gasworks.com and found some pretty interesting results. So first, I searched up CRNAs on gasworks.com. And for those of you who don't know what gasworks.com is, it's a website that has a listing of a lot of different anesthesia providers' positions, like employers who are looking to hire CRNAs or anesthesiologists or anesthesia assistants. They post their jobs on gasworks.com, and it'll have some information about that job and a lot of times pay. So I looked on there for CRNAs, and I found the lowest paying position for CRNAs was in Houston, Texas. It was an ACT model setting, and it was $100,000 a year with call. So pretty low. I don't know too many CRNAs who would take that position, but it's there. So on the high end of what a CRNA gets paid, you have Grand Junction, Colorado. That's a pain management clinic, and they're seemingly, it sounds like a lot of autonomous kind of CRNA working on their own in a rural setting. I don't think there's a whole lot of backup for you there from what I could tell from the brief posting. But their pay is as high as $350,000. So, and there's no call with that actually. So I don't know how that works exactly, but there's no call. And then I went to the anesthesiologist side of gasworks.com and I searched their job offers. So on the low side of what an anesthesiologist offers right now on Gasworks is in Dallas, Texas, and it's an anesthesiologist for a general surgery and OB clinic, and they're offering $180,000 with call. That's pretty low, I would say. For anesthesiologists, I would be surprised to find one who would take that position, but who knows, maybe there's someone out there who just really wants to be in Dallas. And then on the upper scale, the highest amount that I saw for anesthesiologist was Apple Valley, California. It was general surgery, OB, blocks. It's an MDA only practice, and so that means they're doing their own work. For those of you who don't know what that means exactly, it means there are no CRNAs or anesthesia assistants for these guys. That means all the cases, all the real work of what goes on in anesthesia, they're going to be in there doing themselves. There's no one there directing or monitoring. They have to do their own work. And so that is $775,000, and that is with call. So that's pretty high pay. And as you can see there, the highest pay $350,000 for a CRNA versus the highest pay is $775,000 for an anesthesiologist. There's a huge contrasting difference there. So the question you have to ask is, should there be that big of a difference? If they do the same job, and of course now the educational requirement is a doctorate, which of course is not exactly the same amount of time as what med school and all that, but it is a significant amount of time and investment. I know, being in a doctorate program myself, it's a big time commitment and a big financial commitment. So the question is, should they get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars more per year on average than a CRNA when they do the same job? Maybe you think that CRNAs do deserve less money than an anesthesiologist because of various reasons, because they're not an anesthesiologist or whatever you may think. Do you think that they deserve hundreds of thousands of dollars less? It's interesting, you know, you can kind of weigh out your opinions on it, and I'd be interested in hearing what you guys think, what general people on the internet who don't know much about anesthesia, who have kind of a cursory knowledge of anesthesia in the medical world, what do you think about it? And I'm interested in knowing what people who are, you know, actually practicing anesthesiologists or CRNAs, what do you think about this? Do you think there should be this big pay difference? Do you think CRNAs deserve less pay? Should they get paid less? Do they not deserve as much as they get paid now? These are all interesting things that came to mind when I saw that forum post and realized there were a lot of people out there with a lot of different opinions about this. And as I'm going further into the field, I think I'd like to know more about what the general population out there thinks about it. So anyway, if you have any comments, you can leave them down in the box below, and that's Bolt out.